Welcome back to Wellness in Minutes, where we give you bite-sized health information that's easy to digest. Be sure to check out the show notes for details on the full episode and more from the Food Matters podcast.
Like medicinal mushrooms even.
Yeah.
I've supplemented with lion's mane before, and I've, enjoyed all sorts of different mushrooms and ripped, big mushrooms off trees and grassed them up and done things. But, when you see real mushrooms in real life, they're like scary because people are like, oh my God, is this going to kill me? But then when you see a lion's mane, I mean, that thing is like alien-esque, right? And
Beautiful, yeah.
it's so beautiful. And then this guy's like, yeah, you eat it, it's great for your brain. And there's this whole thing about the doctrine of signatures, right? Like walnuts good for the brain, tomatoes, lycopene, 4 chambers, good for the heart, carrots, good for the eyes, increase blood flow to the eyes 20% after eating them. All these things. And you look at a lion's mane, you're like, damn, that's a head with some hair on it. What's going on there, right?
Yeah, there's so much to say about functional mushrooms, and what's noteworthy is like we spend 90% of our time as a business talking about and working on functional mushrooms, and part of the reason why we're doing that versus just doing psychedelic education and events is because I very much believe that functional mushrooms are equally as powerful and also the gateway to really understanding mushrooms as a whole and understanding fungi as a kingdom, right? So you kind of outlined it. There's culinary mushrooms, the shiitake, the button mushrooms that you will get in your grocery store.
Swiss brown, yeah.
The best. And then there's functional mushrooms, and there's, thousands of species of mushrooms. There's around 13 functional mushrooms that are most commonly talked about. We can kind of like go into a little detail on those.
Yeah,
and then there's the
please.
psychedelic ones, right? So just to double click on functional mushrooms, and also just by like way of introduction of functional mushrooms, I mentioned it a little bit, but humans evolved eating mushrooms. And that's not something I really understood. Like when I first found them, I was like, ooh, this cool new sexy wellness supplement. Or, I thought it was an ingredient that had just been like found. And then when you start to look into it, functional mushrooms have been used in Chinese medicine for, again, thousands of years. And they still, they just had a gap, like somewhere along the line. This is a lot of what we talk about with Supermush as we're kind of explaining why functional mushrooms are powerful. Somewhere along the line, they were removed from our diet in the Western world. And if you look back at the most vital periods of human development, brain growth, athletic performance, muscle growth, humans were consuming functional mushrooms and psilocybin, depending on what, theories you subscribe to. But Stoned Ape theory very much shows that our brains exponentially grew through the consumption of psilocybin mushrooms in the wild. And they're a vital part of our diet. I actually was having a conversation with someone on Instagram saying, well, can I take this for a little bit just to get back to baseline and then stop taking mushrooms? So I don't. And I very much believe that functional mushrooms should be a part of our daily routine. And they've been a part of mine for 6 and 7 years. And I don't really get sick. I feel pretty awesome most of the time. I have a ton of energy, and I really point to mushrooms as being my like powerhouse with that. And so just to kind of like, I can break down just like a few high level ones if you want to go into
let's
them.
break down some of your most popular, your top favorite, Ali's top favorite functional mushrooms.
Great.
Here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, here it is. Ali's favorite mushrooms. So, I'll kind of answer it in the form of Supermush. Obviously, like we're biased. We created these 3 functional mushroom superfood sprays. And if anyone's watching, they look like this. If anyone's listening, you can find them at Supermush on Instagram or online. But our energy spray, for example, has lion's mane and cordyceps in it. Cordyceps is incredible for athletic performance. It actually increases the body's production of ATP, which is really essential for delivering energy to the muscles. And there's all these studies that have shown cordyceps helps increase antioxidants. It improves memory, even sexual function. It can even lower, LDL cholesterol. And then lion's mane, which you mentioned before, it's like this white kind of like squiggly, cool looking mushroom. They're fungi, and it is the brain mushroom. So it, helps protect against mental decline. It promotes neurogenesis in the brain. It stimulates, growth of brain cells. And a lot of times, like notable here is that when people take microdosing psilocybin, it's often stacked with both lion's mane and cordyceps. So a lot of people, when they microdose, like you're actually feeling the lion's mane. You will feel your brain light up if you take a high dose of lion's mane. And so, in our energy spray, we have lion's mane, cordyceps. It also has rhodiola, and some other really nice superfoods and herbs that give it like a really beautiful flavor. It tastes delicious. And as far as consumption method, you also want to make sure that you're consuming your mushrooms ideally in an extracted form. So for people that are shopping for functional mushrooms, like this is a whole other rabbit hole to go down. But part of the reason why we created the Multiverse, which is our marketplace for functional mushrooms, is to help people vet the best mushroom products out there, because in a very similar way to what happened with the CBD space, we're seeing people create products in the mushroom space that aren't using the right part of the fungi and not the right amount. So it's not really an effective product. So all the products that we have in the Multiverse have been vetted for not only just like general wellness standards, but also for mushroom standards. And we call them our list of Fung Yes and our Fung No criteria. And then I can also, just a few other mushrooms if people want to learn a little bit more. Like we have an immunity spray as well that has turkey tail and reishi. Reishi is my favorite mushroom. I've taken that every single night before I go to bed in some form, whether it's in a powder, whether it's in our daily chill spray. But it is the chill mushroom. It brings your body to homeostasis. It's also really good for, helping manage occasional stress, fighting infections, overall keeping inflammation down in the body. Preliminary studies have shown that it can help lower anxiety, depression. So our chill spray is stacked with reishi, ashwagandha, and then also turkey tail. Turkey tail is fascinating. It is not made from turkey.
Let's speak about turkey tail, because I know that Paul Stamets gave it to his mom who had cancer, right? And she had an incredible experience with it, and he's a bit of a mushroom guy, right? What is turkey tail? Sure. Yeah, he's the mushroom guy. But what is turkey tail? How, what does it look like? I've never seen it in the wild. Obviously, it's got its name from a turkey. And how can you consume it whole, or do you consume it typically in an extract form? And what is it good for?
Extract. So any of these mushrooms, like you really want to be consuming in extract form. Even culinary mushrooms, like little known fact is you want to be cooking them. You don't really want to eat them raw. Much better for your digestive system. But turkey tail is an antioxidant powerhouse. So it has, and something to note too is like all of the functional mushrooms, they have like general benefits that all overlap. They're all good for inflammation. They're all good for kind of like bringing your body to homeostasis, stress management. And then each one individually has more specific benefits. So, the case study you're talking about is Paul Stamets talks a lot about how he gave his mom high doses of turkey tail. I have functional medicine doctor friends that prescribe turkey tail to their cancer patients in high doses as well. It can help reduce inflammation, stimulate the release of, protective compounds, and also just has, helpful and really powerful polysaccharides that help fight infection and help your body protect against certain bacteria. It also has probiotics. So the list is kind of endless with these things. And mushrooms are immune modulating. So they function, they work to adapt to whatever your body needs. So, whereas you may take reishi because you're feeling kind of low and you want a little bit more energy. Maybe I take reishi because, I feel like I'm overstimulated and want to like help myself calm down. So each person, the way they interact with your body is a little bit different, but there are like general use cases for each one. Like I said, lion's mane, brain mushroom, cordyceps, incredible for athletic performance. A lot of athletes are using that right now.
Nice. And when just jumping back into like good old mushrooms that are from the supermarket, like the button mushrooms or the Swiss brown, I actually sometimes love chomping on them raw, but you're saying that's a little bit of a faux pas, right? Is it better to cook them? Does that help activate some of the constituent healing properties in there? Or is it more just that it's easier to digest when it's cooked?
So raw mushrooms are like largely indigestible because they have like a really tough cell wall. It's I actually may be pronouncing this wrong, but it's either chitin or chitin, but that's what's the chemical that's in the cell walls of mushrooms. So like you should cook them. You obviously like will see some salad bars and things that have like raw mushrooms in them. Not a good move. Definitely cook your mushrooms and you'll have a better experience for sure.
Nice. And in terms of like mushroom foraging, I mean, there's like groups out there and people could maybe join local communities. Like, what's your advice for people that are looking to enter this journey of interacting with mushrooms for healing, for well-being, and so forth?
Depends on how deep you want to go with it, right? Because, it's funny once you start to learn more about mushrooms, I would definitely recommend, if anyone's interested, there's an incredible documentary called Fantastic Fungi.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good overview of like mushrooms and fungi as a whole. But there are entire, very, very passionate groups of people that are dedicated mycologists that go mushroom foraging together. There's mushroom festivals. There is, there's endless mushroom accessories out there on the internet that you can purchase. Like it's this whole world, right? And it still feels very niche, and now it's coming mainstream. And so like where our company sits is we're in between like the mycologist and the average consumer that's mushroom curious, that we're trying to help bring them into the mainstream, get them into people's diets, educate people about both functional mushrooms and psychedelics. So I would say, if you're passionate about mushroom foraging, there's definitely a group near you, depending on where you live. You can go mushroom foraging. You can go to certain festivals. If you're just looking for like health benefits and incorporating mushrooms into your life, like, we tell people, check out the Multiverse, check out Supermush.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many products out there.
Yeah.
Protein powders, jerkies, tinctures, capsules, like
coffee.
There's granola bar, like there's everything that has functional mushrooms kind of making their way into ingredient lists. So that's from the personal health side of things. And then for people that are looking at psilocybin, whether it be microdosing or, larger ceremonial consciousness altering doses for healing, there's, a lot of resources online. I point people to Double Blind, which is an incredible psychedelic resource for, people that are looking to learn primarily and experiment with psychedelics. Third Wave is also incredible. Both founders I'm really big fans of, and we also are working on this nonprofit. So if you're passionate about microdosing psilocybin as well, we'd love to hear your story. I'm really passionate about just hearing how it's worked for people.
Nice.
And it's an interesting thing because I get the most common question I get on Instagram is like, where can I find microdosing?
Yeah.
And it's still Schedule 1. It's still fully illegal, but hopefully over the next 12 to 24 months that people will be looking to change that. Hopefully this group as well.
So yes, thank you everyone for listening. I really enjoyed that talk. I hope you did too. And there will be more of these on the Food Matters podcast. So head to foodmatters.com and see you again.